Sally Edwards and welcome back to the final video for December Daily 2022. Final in terms of my process. I'll do another video here with a full flip through coming up soon. Today I'm going to work on story 24 and 25. I'm going to kind of combine them together into one video. I think it's just going to make the most sense. What I have in here right now is I have my stocking page that I built during prep day, and this has pockets, or this is created with pockets, or when I made them, I made pockets there. And so what I've done is I've printed out a variety of photos from Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and I'm gonna make these into tags that can go into these stocking pockets here. I've done journaling, one for Christmas Eve and one for Christmas Day. Then I have two full page photos to end out my album. One is from Christmas Eve and then another one is from Christmas Day. I want to end on this story of a fun little thing we did with our neighbors that I detailed on Instagram. And then here too, we have some new neighbors, and they have a private drive, and Simon wanted to make them some almonds, so he did that. He did some specialty almonds, and so we have a whole little story about that here. So these are going to be the last two pages in my album. So essentially this is 24 and then 25 probably just combined together. I think it's going to be fine to have that all in one place. So the measurements that I did for my photos and my journaling, again, like I said, some of these I'm going to do them back to back. So some will have photos on both sides, some will have a photo on one side and journaling on the other side. These are 2.75 by I think 6.5. 2.75, yeah, by 6.5, and so they fit right inside the stocking themselves. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of this part first, and then we'll deal with those last two full page photos and see what little bits of embellishing I decide to add on here as we go. All right, so process-wise on this one, the first steps for me were simply cutting these out or trimming these out of the photo paper that I printed them on. You could definitely do more if you had more photos. Those of you guys that have been around a long time have seen me do Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with just one photo per day. I think a couple times I've done a collage. It's probably most likely for me, though, that I would do one photo for Christmas Day and one photo for Christmas Eve. So this time I'm mixing it up a little bit by adding in a few other photos, and I liked having them be this really strong vertical size, and I also really like how they end up being tags. I think it's hard to go wrong with tags, right? With creating tags, whether you are making them out of pattern paper or cardstock or journaling or your photos, it's just really hard to go wrong with tags. So anytime you can do a pocket with tags, I think that's really a fun way to approach it. Finally pulling out these foam letter stickers. I grabbed them a few times earlier this month and then didn't end up using them, but I love them for my titles on these. So I'm calling this day the eve and the day, right? That, you know, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and that's what I did on the little table of contents page there. So I'm trying to get it right in the middle. I'm going to go back in and adjust that Eve one because it's a little bit not in the middle. I try to put the center letter down first and then build around that. That's an easy way to try to get it in the middle. And I'm also leaving space for a hole to be punched on the top with one of the We Are Memory Keepers hole punch. But I loved doing Day and Eve as the titles. They still fit just fine within the pockets, even having those foam letters on top there. But before I finish up the tags, I do come back and I'm going to fix my title here. I did a circle punch of white cardstock, and then I layered one of the transparencies from the 6x8 transparency set, one of the little wreaths on top, and then I'm adhering one more of the chipboard circles, the outline of the chipboard circle, and then I used a 2 and a 4 from a past numbers set. Definitely would love to be able to get you guys a number set that has more 2s and 1s. I hear you on that one too, so we'll try to make something like that happen. I know there have been a couple times where we tried to do it before and there's been a few different complications, but adding that one on there, I'm going to also add a little tab on the back. I've really liked how that has looked over the course of the month. That's one of the things that you will see in my projects are some repetition of design ideas, right? Rather than feeling like you have to reinvent the wheel every single day in this project, it's really nice to look back on what you've already done and see if there's things that you can continue on with. I don't always know at the beginning of the month what those repeated elements will be throughout the album, and so it's kind of fun to see what ends up being repeated. These stockings, I actually put these together for prep day, and I'm going ahead and just stapling the space where the washi tape is there just to give it a little bit of extra hold there. Those were from prep day and they were super fun to put together. So they are stocking pockets, and the back of the pockets have vellum so you can see through there. So you'll be able to see through when the tags are stuck in those pockets. Again, I think this was a really fun way to tackle the stories of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I'm going to be putting the 24, I did put the 24 on the front, and then the 25 is actually going to go on the back, and then I'm adding in those two other photos that you saw earlier. I've got cats on my table all day today. We had a dog visiting, and so the cats were definitely sticking close to me in my office today. But anyway, going ahead and just using the middle hole punch on there. I'm going to be doing that on all of my tags, and then I'll be adding in some ribbons. I'm also going to round the corners. I did that, I think, in story 23. And I always like the look of that. So once I start doing that, then I usually continue on with it because I just like how it looks. So adhering those all back to back, just getting them all set up. Again, it's a great flexible idea, right? That you can have a bigger variety of photos. You could do photo strips. You could use that same size there and create photo strips if you wanted to have even more photos on top, depending on what your Christmas Eve and Christmas Day were like. So again, take the ideas that I'm sharing and translate them into your own project. I had one extra photo here that I needed a backing for, so I'm using one of the pattern papers from the kit and or add-on paper pack this year. I used so many papers this year, and I really love how my album turned out with using a wide variety of patterns from the things that we offered this year. So now I have that one photo that has a pattern paper on the back, and I'll be adding something else on there as well in a minute here. Also taking a little bit of time to trim some of the edges. As usual, there's a few that aren't perfect, which is just par for the course. So I often spend some time doing that. And here we go. Here's the hole punch, or the corner punch there. I got that in a set that had two corner punches. One is a wider curve, and then the other one is this, I think it's a 1/4 inch narrow curve on there. But I just like the look of that, especially on a tag. It's really fun to have the rounded corners. So I'm going ahead and doing that on all of those before I get back to the part of the process here where I add on the ribbons. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add this glitter cardstock word joy. When we create things like this, we sometimes add the dot on there, but it has to be connected in order for it to be die cut in this way. So a lot of times what I do is I just cut that part off, and then I will add an embellishment for the dot on whatever the word is. I used rolling adhesive to adhere that down on there, and then I've got another one of those paper glitter stars that we've offered in the past. I thought that looked really cute. So you could definitely do, more like that or more with words on them. It's going to just depend on what your own content is, right? How many photos do you want to use? How much journaling do you want to include? Those are the questions that you're going to need to answer for yourself. So then from there, I'm adding on a couple different red and white twine things that I have, and then one more of a red ribbon there. That one's going to go on the joy one that I'm going to put into the center stocking. So the center stocking will have one tag there, and then the other two stockings will have two. All right, so pulling that ribbon through there, and then I'm going to staple it with my tiny attacher, and then trim down the little bits of ribbon there just to get it cleaned up, and then that will be in the middle, and then I'll use the twine on the other ones again there. Let's see, what other things can I tell you about this? I really like how this one turned out. I used one of our page attachers on the outside of the stocking, so to make it in order, to make it so that it can fit into the album, and that worked really well. I considered adding embellishments onto my photos, whether it was going to be word phrase stickers or something else, but I decided to just leave them as they are. I loved having a bokeh photo of the tree, especially since one of the other projects that I did, is that tree or stories that I did was the tree during the day. I liked having a photo of the tree with the lights on as well. And then as you can see, this is just vellum on the back of these stockings, which just makes it fun to be able to see through to the other side. Just adding on one more piece of twine there before I move on to the final two pieces of this. I'm calling it Stories 24 and 25, but it's just kind of the last few things in the album itself. So there we go. That's going to go back into the album, fits in just right with those the page inserts there. And now I'm going to deal with my last two photos. So I'm going to trim them down so that they're 11 11 inches wide by 8 1/4 tall. And then I knew that I wanted to add something on top of them. One of the photos already has journaling on top because it's the one that I shared on Instagram. So I already had writing, and it was about this fun little thing with our neighbors across the fence. That's going to be my last story. And then my second to the last story is one of the photos that I took. I think it's from Christmas Eve, and it's just a bunch of the kids sitting around in the living room, and it's such a good representation of what life looks like around here just generally, and when they're all kind of hanging out together. I like it. I like when they're all hanging out there together, even if they're all on their own individual devices. They're usually chatting or talking, and actually in this particular time they were playing, I think they were playing Minecraft together, which is not something that they all play all the time, but it was kind of fun to see them go back to that. For a little bit of extra journaling on top of this photo, I'm going to do this one more time where I am adding the felt pocket directly onto the photo. This will cover up our TV there, which I think seemed just fine. I also love this photo because it's more of a wide angle, so you're seeing a little bit more of what's happening in the room, a little bit more of the Christmas representation. And then I'm adding the How We Do Christmas circle on the top. That was from a die cut set, 2-inch die cut set we offered this year. I really like the look of that die cut circle on top. It's just a fun way to add a little bit of something else on there that's a little bit different than what I've done on the other ones. I did add a number 25 chipboard piece to the back of the stockings. I felt like that made sense to me in terms of where the actual journaling was for both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So what I decided to do with this one is I am going to add a little bit more journaling, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go back over to my computer and do something similar to what I did in the very beginning of the month. I also went back through those 2-inch circles, and I picked another one out, which is the best Christmas memory, and I'm going to simply adhere that right on the top, right next to where the journaling is. I love that as my last little story, kind of neighborly goodwill and kindness. But I go back over to my computer, and what I ended up doing is printing my journaling on a transparency. So on a transparency that's able to go in the printer. It's just an easy way to do this. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a stitch. I actually end up doing a full plus sign on there, a cross on there, X, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's like a plus sign. And then I'm going to cut around the outside edge where the transparency is. So that's kind of an easy way to get it on there without running the actual circle through the computer. It's always nice to have some printable transparency, printable vellum on hand for just this kind of thing, beyond the fact that I just like having transparent embellishments, transparent pages too. But this is an easy way. And most of my hole punches do not punch very well through transparency, so I've just kind of come to the point where I simply trim it out around the outside edge and use it just as a guide, and that seems to work just fine. So I'm adding in with my very last little bit that I had on my needle there, little bit of thread. So I've got that cute little plus sign that's going to be on the top of this one, and this is going to get tucked back into the felt. Thank you so much for joining me here this year for December Daily 2022. I'll be back with a full album walkthrough fairly soon. Hopefully, I think should be within the next few days. But thank you so much for spending a part of your December here with me, and I hope you enjoy your own storytelling adventures.